songs online, and these are short blasts, ideas. Talk about the inspiration for those. I mean, were they just things that you had a thought, you had an idea, you're in the studio, you just lay this thing down without thinking too much about it?
I feel like you're just describing every good record ever made right then, basically. Yeah. It's not a science for me. I mean, maybe it is. It's ritualistic. The brevity of those songs, in my opinion, actually, it's irrelevant to the structure and to the content. I mean,
meaning the thought is complete. The idea.
If I sat down and played it on an acoustic guitar and slowed them down, you would think it was just like a regular record that I had made or something like that. But the fact I played all the instruments on that, and I wanted to do. I wanted to just play stuff that was a little faster. I wanted to. I do in the studio kind of do whatever I'm interested in doing that day, and that session I think was over the course of like maybe 1 or 2 days. It might have just been one day, weirdly, and I just would come up with a riff, and then I would just sort of be writing a riff on my studio, much like the one we're in now, and then I would walk over to the drums because I had just come up with it. I could remember the structure, and so I just played the drums in the blind, then walk back over to the guitar and put the guitar down, and then take a couple of minutes, look at the lyrics. If they felt right, then I would just sort of put them down. It was a really easy thing to do. But I mean, I've been doing this since I was 15, and I'm 39. So the idea of going, I have this to say, this is how I feel. It's not even how I feel like saying it. It's just, this is what I'm going to say. This is the way the guitar is going to go. I just don't really, include doubt in my artistic process. And I don't include fear in my artistic process. It's, in my opinion, they have no place for me personally, in anything that I do that's artistic, because I see people struggling with that, and that's sad. I don't really. I know there's a lot of pressure in the world for people to think in terms of their own manager, or like as a careerist. If you could see it in social media, it's always existed, but you really see it in like for people that pay attention to reviewers, or in some instances their own fan base. You start nurturing this unhealthy relationship with doubt and fear, like that you will somehow lead people astray. It's like that can't exist with me. In fact, what's cool is I've abolished it to the point where it can never exist with me ever again, because it's just not. That's not what I'm meant to do. I'm just meant to be creative, because it's this playful thing. It's this thing that a person can do that doesn't harm anyone, and only good comes from it. And even if no one ever hears it, the ritual of sitting down and saying, I'm going to participate in this thing today where there are no wrong answers, and there's no negativity at all associated with it at all. No matter how toxic or septic even the poetry in the music is, or how angsty the music could ever sound, even, which really isn't part of what I do, but there's no negative connotation. There's nobody's harmed. It's nothing but a direct connection to being, in my opinion, probably more evolved. I mean, look back at the first things that human beings did that have survived and still make us stand in complete awe. It's those fucking cave paintings in France. They're so majestic. They're so alchemical. They're so magical. You look at that, and they figured out that the way that they were drawn, that they think that maybe that they used a fire, and that the fire flickered and made the animals look like they moved ever so much on the cave. And you have to think about that and just like really think about these monolithic structures that also have existed for, for thousands and thousands of years on Earth. And I think there's a part of human beings where our nature tends towards this thing of like creating things and building things and expressing ourselves. And then there's this other side that's super concerned with doubt and regret and anger and what are other people doing. And then, if you really look at that, you really see what side art is on, and then you see what side this other condition is on. It's like if you look at the world politically, or look at, people that sort of hate themselves, or they want to spend their lives telling other people how to live because they live like that. Like all of these people, it's so disconnected from the self and from the soul. And I don't want that in my life ever. And people you don't get to make that time up. So if you get that wisdom when you're 60 or 70, and you're like, I spent 40 years giving so much of a shit about what people thought about how I made music, or what records of mine were right, or if I should have edited this, or I don't want that. I would feel sorry for anybody if they had to learn that the wrong way,
I feel like it's effortless for you, it just comes out, and even you kind of stand in some skepticism and doubt, and maybe also because you're so familiar with the process. But I hear that on the record.
No. I'm not. That is not what it's about. That's teachable. What you just said. It just comes out. What is wrong with dropping? What is wrong with so many people dropping all of this pretense that this requires people to have any kind of an objective understanding of music? Because it's so wrong. That's the thing that's so interesting to me is, I just didn't have anybody telling me, because I was isolated in the small town growing up and grew up around these really nurturing grandparents who were very, very interested in me being interested in art of all kinds, short stories and music and poetry, But I didn't have anybody telling me, like when I got my first guitar, oh yeah, you can't just play that. You have to learn Led Zeppelin song or something. I didn't even know what that was. I just got the guitar and went, man, these things, there's something wrong with them, because if you play the strings open, it doesn't sound right. So I just tuned it so that it sounded good open. And then I was like, this has got to be how it's supposed to be, because when I now move my finger up the frets, it's changing all the notes. And the first thing I did was I wrote a song. I'll never know what that tuning was. And I remember very shortly thereafter showing this to this bass player guy and him going, wow, this is cool. Do not, by the way, talk to any other guitar players before we play, and don't tune that. And I'm like, oh, I just retune it when I want to change songs. I have this whole thing worked out. And I invented this idea of how I thought it would go, But really, I'm surprised that it looks difficult for anyone to just, if they want to make music, just not get a guitar and make noise. I mean, first of all, you can buy a small amp that has reverb. Second of all, you can get a Mel Bay basic chords book. And I don't know anybody that couldn't play A minor. And you know what, though? Greg Sage is still playing A minor. He's been playing A minor since like 1979. And I buy every one of his A minor albums, and it's like sometimes they're all the same song. Silver Sail has got like Why I Came is a great song. It starts it, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of the same song. Every song is just, he wrote another song because he wants to do another weird desert solo on it. And I'm down, man. I'm so down. But what's really great about that is, it's not what people think. it's not, music isn't a trick. I mean, you can literally pick up a guitar. It could be completely out of tune. And if you're doing it for yourself and you're finding your own thing where your words make sense, that's really all that matters. It's not about sharing it at all. The whole sharing it part of it should be a big accident or something that happens because you get to the point where you're like, now I have this energy and I think I should share it. It's just all the other that probably prevents so many people from feeling, you know, immersed in their process. Because it is a